Assalamualaikum and greetings to all. Welcome back to our video lecture slide series, and this is video lecture slides week 5. So for this particular video lecture slide, we are going to look at the principles and values for Buddhism. But before that, at the end of this video lecture slides, all of you should be able to compare and contrast components of the major religions such as theology, ritual, myth, symbols, daily life, and other critical components within the context of each unique religion accordingly. And this is our course learning outcome too. So let's begin with principles. Basically, if you were to talk about the definition of principles, last 2 weeks we talked about the principles of Hinduism. So I believe that you have some sort of rough ideas of what principles are. They are the guiding principles, or they are the guide in order for believers to do something in their life. So principles basically refer to what believers of individual religion must do and must not do in their daily life. And for Buddhists, for example, there are 5 main principles that they must follow through. So these 5 main principles, when we look at these principles after this, you will realize that they are quite universal in nature. That means everybody in this world would do the same thing in order to create and build a peaceful nation or a peaceful world. And then after we look at the principles after this, we're going to look at the values for Buddhists. There are a variety of core values for Buddhism, and Buddhists have several elements that are known as the 3 refuges or the 3 jewels. And Buddhists actually, they are very concerned about this taking refuge in Buddha or Siddhartha Gautama and his teachings, Dharma, responsibility in Hinduism, the meaning of that, and the religious community he found. Siddhartha Gautama found this religious community called Sangha. And however, ladies and gentlemen, the biggest core values that we are going to learn for Buddhism is what we refer to as the 4 noble truths. 4 noble truths. So basically, for principles we have 5 principles, and for values we have 4 values under the 4 noble truths. Now let's first have a look at the principles. Very straightforward. As I said, Buddhism is a very philosophical religion. So it's very straightforward. You will be able to understand straight away. Number 1, do not lie. So the first principle of becoming a Buddhist is do not lie. Number 2, do not steal. Number 3, do not kill. Number 4, do not drink dangerous items for your health. Basically, this refers to alcohol. And number 5, do not sleep with anyone that you actually found wherever you go. So you only sleep with the one who is legally married to you. So these 5 principles, as I said earlier on, is very universally accepted as good moral values. Do not lie, do not steal, do not kill, do not drink alcoholic items, and do not sleep with anyone that is not related to you by marriage. So very straightforward. And in terms of the principle itself, now, one question: what do you think happens what do you think will happen if believers go against the principles? That means do not follow the principles. So this one will be discussed in our next face-to-face class. So remember, what happens, in your opinion, to believers who actually go against the principles, do not follow the principles, or maybe leave 1 or 2 of the principles out of their daily life? So what happens? And then we are going to look at values. Now, values under Buddhism, we consider the 4 noble truths. So basically, as I said, 5 principles and 4 values under the 4 noble truths. The first one, the truth of suffering, or what we call dukkha. Now, suffering is believed to be the major reason why people actually need to constrain themselves. And the suffering comes in three forms: old age, sickness, and death. So people basically, the Buddhists believe that they will suffer because of old age, sickness, as well as death. So this is the truth of suffering, or we call it dukkha. The second one is samudaya, or the truth of the origin of suffering. Where did the suffering come from? So the truth of the origin of the suffering. And there are, according to Buddhism, three roots for the origins of suffering. The first one, greed and desire. You are greedy and you desire a lot of things in your life. And when you talk about desire, desire is something that you don't actually need, that it's not necessary at all, but it becomes accessories in your life. So greed and desire. The second set is ignorance and delusion. So you do not care about other people, you become ignorant and you become delusional. You are in your own state of mind, you are not in the real world. So that's ignorance and delusion. And the last one, hatred and destructive urges. You don't like somebody, you hate him or her to the extent that you cannot tolerate this person and you want to kill him or her. Destructive urges, the feelings that you want to destroy whatever that you don't like in your life. So basically, ladies and gentlemen, the origin of the suffering, three roots: greed and desire, ignorance and delusional, as well as hatred and destructive urges. The third one is what we call the truth of the cessation of suffering, or nirodha. That means cessation is the end. So you have to liberate one, or you have to liberate yourself. You have to detach yourself from all this suffering. So the truth of the end of the suffering. And the last value is the truth of the path to the cessation of suffering, bhaga, or the truth of the path to end the suffering. So this is where the Buddha's prescription for the eightfold path that you talk about in the circle, eightfold path. So that's this Buddha's prescription. So basically, Siddhartha Gautama, or Buddha's teaching the believers to follow the eightfold path. So ladies and gentlemen, four values for Buddhism, for Buddhists in Buddhism. They come under the Four Noble Truths: the truth of suffering, the truth of the origin of suffering, the truth of the cessation of suffering, and the truth of the path to the cessation of suffering. So ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of the video lecture slides week 5. So basically, these video lecture slides talk about the principles and values in Buddhism. We have 5 principles: do not lie, do not steal, do not kill, do not drink alcoholic beverages, and do not sleep with anyone that's not related to you by marriage. And then we have 4 values. They come under the Four Noble Truths: the truth of suffering, the truth of the origin of suffering, the truth of the cessation of suffering, and the truth of the path to the cessation of suffering. So ladies and gentlemen, should you have any questions whatsoever, you can always WhatsApp me or email me and talk about your concerns in our next physical class. With that, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum and greetings once again to everybody.